The silence in the Rawkari High Court was thick with amusement as Lord Xanthal reclined on his throne, his iridescent silver eyes gleaming under the phosphorescent lights. His violet skin shimmered like silk, and the bioluminescent stripes running down his arms pulsed in rhythm with the crystalline architecture of the Grand Chamber. Around him, other members of the Rawkari elite military commanders, nobles, and high-ranking officials sat in semicircles, their laughter still echoing from the latest spectacle. In the center of the court, a small, trembling creature stood on all fours, its fur a patchy mess of white and brown. It was a dog, a minuscule, pathetic example of the species known to the Rawkari as human pets. The sight of it, with its oversized eyes and shaking legs, was enough to send another round of chuckles through the room. The dog was no taller than a Rawkari's ankle, looking utterly insignificant amidst the alien grandeur. It had been brought in by a group of traders from a distant colony, where humans were known to keep these creatures as companions. How the dog had ended up in the company of galactic smugglers was anyone's guess, but it was here now, meek, fragile, and utterly out of place. Lord Xanthal's lips curled in amusement. This, he said, gesturing toward the dog with a flick of his clawed fingers, is what they brought us from Earth. This thing is supposed to entertain us. The courtiers roared with laughter again. One of the nobles, General Nidros, stood up and took a step forward, towering over the small creature with his 7-foot-tall frame. His voice, deep and mocking, rang out in the hall. Perhaps we should pit it against a Vraloxian scorpion. It would be the fastest fight in the galaxy. The dog's tail tucked firmly between its legs as it cowered, its eyes darting between the towering figures around it. The laughter only grew louder. Let us see it try, Nidros continued, his sharp teeth bared in a cruel grin. Surely the great Rawkari lords deserve a bit of sport, no matter how small. Xanthal waved a hand dismissively. Very well, let the games begin. A low hiss signaled the opening of a cage on the far side of the chamber, where a handler pulled a large, menacing creature into view. The Vraloxian scorpion, a creature bred for arena combat, scuttled forward on 8 segmented legs, its armored exoskeleton gleaming under the lights. Its barbed tail arched high over its back, the venomous stinger dripping a faint blue glow. The dog whimpered and flattened itself against the floor as the scorpion advanced. The courtiers watched, half bored, half curious to see if the tiny creature would simply freeze in terror or get skewered in a matter of seconds. Xanthal sighed, ready to call an end to the pathetic scene when something shifted in the air. The dog stopped trembling. Its breathing slowed. It stood up small but now impossibly still, its dark eyes locking onto the scorpion with an intensity that sent a shiver through the hall. And then it moved. The dog shot forward with blinding speed, darting under the scorpion's legs, avoiding the snapping pincers with a precision that defied reason. It twisted around the scorpion's back, leaping with an agility that was almost unnatural, its tiny form suddenly a blur of motion. The scorpion lashed out with its tail, but the dog ducked effortlessly beneath the strike, spinning to the side and darting toward the creature's exposed underbelly. In a series of rapid, almost impossible movements, the dog's jaws clamped down on the weak joints of the scorpion's leg with surprising force. There was a sickening crunch. The scorpion screeched in pain, its leg crumpling beneath it as it thrashed wildly. But the dog was already gone, disappearing into a blur of white and brown fur as it circled again, leaping onto the scorpion's back. It bit down hard at the base of the tail, tearing through the tough exoskeleton like paper. The entire court gasped. Lord Xanthal rose to his feet, his eyes wide in disbelief. With one final, calculated strike, the dog severed the scorpion's tail completely, the venomous stinger clattering to the ground. The scorpion collapsed, twitching as it lay defeated, its lifeblood seeping across the floor of the great hall. Silence fell over the room. The courtiers stared, slack-jawed, at the tiny creature now standing calmly atop the felled beast, its fur matted with scorpion blood, but its eyes as tranquil as ever. Lord Xanthal could barely find his voice. What is this? The dog padded forward, shaking the blood from its fur, and stopped directly in front of Xanthal's throne. For a moment its dark eyes met the Lord's, and there was something ancient and knowing in its gaze, something that should not have been possible in such a simple creature. Before Xanthal could speak again, a new voice echoed through the chamber. "You wanted a pet for sport," the voice said, calm and clear. "But what you have is much more than that." The Ralkari turned as one toward the entrance of the chamber. A figure stood there, small, by Ralkari standards, but unmistakably human. He wore a dark, sleek uniform, and his face was lined with the scars of someone who had seen far more of the galaxy's horrors than most. His gaze was fixed on the dog, but his voice carried an air of quiet authority. "I'd suggest you let us leave peacefully," the man continued, stepping forward with deliberate calm. "Or my companion here will do to your entire stronghold what he just did to your scorpion." The courtiers exchanged nervous glances. General Nidros, still bristling from his humiliation, stepped forward. "Who are you to make demands in the court of the Ralkari?" The human smiled slightly. "My name is Captain Reiner," and this he nodded toward the dog, now sitting obediently by his side. "This is Spiky." Chaos erupted in the court as Lord Xanthal rose from his throne, eyes blazing with fury. "Guards," he roared. "Seize them both." Dozens of Ralkari soldiers, their tall, angular forms clad in sleek armor, surged forward with blasters drawn. But Captain Reiner remained unnervingly calm. He glanced down at Spiky, who met his gaze with an almost imperceptible nod. In a flash, Spiky was on the move again. He darted through the soldiers' legs, weaving between them like a wraith, his small size making him nearly impossible to target. As one soldier aimed a blaster, Spiky lunged at his wrist, clamping down with those impossibly strong jaws. The weapon clattered to the ground, and before the soldier could even react, Spiky was already tearing through the armor of another guard. Blaster fire erupted across the room, but the Ralkari couldn't get a clear shot. Spiky was too fast, too agile, slipping between their attacks with a precision that seemed more like that of a trained assassin than an earthborn canine. Within moments, 3 guards were down, their armor shredded, while the rest were scrambling to regroup. Lord Xanthal's face twisted in rage as he watched his elite warriors fall to what should have been a helpless creature. "This is impossible," he muttered, gripping the arms of his throne. "It's a dog." Captain Reiner's smile widened. "Spiky isn't just any dog." Another group of soldiers charged at Reiner, but before they could reach him, Spiky leaped into the air, launching himself off the side of a pillar and crashing into the nearest guard's chest. The soldier went down hard, and Spiky rolled, using the momentum to take down another with a swift strike to the leg. Reiner, meanwhile, had drawn a sleek plasma pistol, calmly dispatching the few guards who got too close. He moved with the same unnerving precision as Spiky, as if the two were in perfect synchronization. Xanthal's composure cracked further. "Nidros," he bellowed, turning to his general. "Kill them. Use the drones if you have to." General Nidros, his face a mask of grim determination, tapped a panel on his wrist. From the walls of the chamber, a swarm of sleek, insect-like combat drones emerged, their energy weapons humming to life. Spiky paused for the first time, eyeing the drones warily. They hovered in the air, shifting in formation as they prepared to fire. "Spiky," Reiner said softly. The dog's ears twitched, and then, with a burst of speed that left even the drones struggling to keep up, Spiky leaped toward the nearest wall. He sprang from surface to surface, zigzagging in a dizzying pattern that confused the drones' targeting systems. They fired, but Spiky was always one step ahead, the energy bolts scorching the walls behind him but never touching him. As Spiky closed in on the drones, Reiner raised his pistol, firing off quick, precise shots that sent several drones spiraling to the floor in flames. The rest hesitated just long enough for Spiky to leap onto the nearest one, tearing through its fragile wings and sending it crashing into the others. In a matter of seconds, the drones were reduced to smoking debris. Spiky trotted back to Reiner's side, his tail wagging as if he hadn't just single-handedly decimated a squad of soldiers and a swarm of combat drones. Lord Xanthal was no longer seated. He stood frozen, eyes wide, as he watched the impossible unfold before him. Lord Xanthal's mind raced, struggling to comprehend the sheer impossibility of what he had just witnessed. The court was in shambles, debris scattered from the destroyed drones, and half his elite guard lay defeated by a creature that shouldn't have posed any threat. His gaze flickered between Captain Reiner, standing calmly in the midst of the carnage, and the dog Spiky now sitting innocently at his feet, licking its paws as if nothing had happened. Enough Xanthel's voice cracked like a whip, but it lacked the authority it once carried. His confidence, carefully cultivated through decades of control, had been eroded in mere minutes. Do you think you can just walk into my stronghold and... I do, Reiner interrupted coolly, taking a step forward, his pistol still casually held at his side. Unless you'd like to see what else Spiky can do. A ripple of uncertainty spread through the remaining guards. Several exchanged nervous glances, their hands still clutching their weapons, but none dared to advance. General Nidros stood rigid, his face pale with a mix of fury and fear. The unspoken question in the room was clear. If a dog could tear through Ralkari soldiers and drones with such ease, what other secrets did this human and his pet hide? Xanthel's hand trembled slightly as he weighed his options. His stronghold was built to withstand sieges from entire fleets, yet here he was, powerless against one man and his dog. His lips twitched as he struggled to find the right words, but Reiner wasn't waiting for a response. You should know, Xanthel, Reiner said, his voice almost casual. Spiky wasn't always this way. He was trained engineered, actually by some of the best minds in the galaxy. At first he was just a companion, a loyal pet. But over time we discovered something interesting, you see. Humans have a unique bond with certain animals. We don't just train them, we understand them. And Spiky. He glanced down at the dog, who tilted his head up at him, wagging his tail slightly. Spiky learned more than we ever imagined. Xanthel's eyes narrowed. What? What are you talking about? Reiner smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Spiky isn't a pet anymore. He's a partner. And that bond we share, it makes us far more dangerous than you could ever understand. The court, already on edge, shifted uncomfortably at Reiner's words. The tension in the room was palpable, and the fear that had been festering in the hearts of Xanthel's elite was now blossoming into full-blown terror. Xanthel, however, refused to cower. His pride, his arrogance wouldn't allow it. With a swift motion, he tapped a button on the armrest of his throne, summoning an emergency holographic display in front of him. The screen flickered to life, showing a tactical map of the stronghold, its layers of defense, and the hundreds of soldiers still stationed throughout the fortress. I could have you killed in an instant, human Xanthel hissed, his confidence returning with the familiar presence of his military might. You and that abomination would be vaporized before you could take another step. Reiner's expression didn't change. You could try. For a long moment, neither man moved. The holographic map hovered in front of Xanthel, the defensive systems of the stronghold displayed in intricate detail. The Ralkari Lord's finger hovered over a command, ready to unleash the full might of his fortress. Then, without warning, the lights flickered again. The hum of the fortress's energy shields wavered, and a strange, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the floor. Xanthel glanced around, his brow furrowing. What? Reiner's smile widened. Did I mention Spiky isn't the only one with a few tricks? The tremor grew stronger, and the lights flickered once more. A low rumble echoed through the walls, like the distant roar of an approaching storm. Xanthel's eyes darted to the tactical map, where red warnings began flashing across the display. Impossible, he whispered. The shields. The energy grid. They're down, Reiner confirmed, his voice cold and matter-of-fact. I'd say you've got about 5 minutes before your entire stronghold is breached. You can thank Spiky for that, too. Xanthel stared at him, disbelief etched into his face. What did you? Spiky was just the distraction, Reiner continued, pacing slowly toward the throne. While you were busy watching him, I was accessing your systems. A few modifications to your security protocols here, a little sabotage there. He trailed off, watching the panic begin to rise in Xanthel's eyes. Let's just say your fortress isn't as impenetrable as you thought. Xanthel slammed his fist against the armrest of his throne. You filthy human. Do you have any idea what you've done? Reiner stopped, his expression hardening. I know exactly what I've done. And I know what you've done too, Xanthal. The Rockery Lord froze, his violet eyes narrowing. What do you mean? I mean, Reiner said, his voice low, that this isn't just about a dog and some sport for your amusement. This is about the dozens of colonies you've raided, the people you've enslaved, and the lives you've destroyed. Xanthal's lips twisted into a sneer. You think you're some kind of hero then? Come to avenge the weak? How noble. I'm no hero, Reiner replied, his tone as sharp as a blade. But I've seen enough of what you do to know that you won't stop until someone makes you. Xanthal's sneer faltered as Reiner stepped even closer, the human's cold gaze locked onto him with a force that made his blood run cold. There was no bravado in Reiner's words, no empty threats, only the grim certainty of someone who had seen too much, who had already made peace with what needed to be done. You're going to let us go, Reiner said quietly, and you're going to stay out of the Terran colonies from now on. If you don't, well, Spiky and I will be back. And next time, we won't be this polite. The silence in the room was deafening. Even General Nidros, who had been ready to strike at any moment, seemed frozen, unsure of what to do. The rest of the court looked to Xanthal, waiting for their lord's next move, but the once powerful leader of the Rockery seemed paralyzed, his eyes darting between Reiner and the tactical map flashing in front of him. For the first time in his life, Xanthal felt powerless. Slowly, he lowered his hand from the command panel, the tension draining from his body like air from a punctured vessel. Very well, he muttered, his voice barely more than a whisper. Take your beast and leave. Reiner nodded, the faintest hint of satisfaction crossing his features. Smart choice. He turned and began walking toward the exit, Spiky trotting obediently at his side. As they passed the rows of stunned courtiers, Reiner paused for a moment, glancing back at Xanthal. One last thing, he said. The next time you decide to mess with Earth or its colonies, remember this: humans may look weak, but we've learned a lot from our pets. Xanthal's face twisted in fury, but he said nothing, the weight of his defeat hanging heavy over the room. With that, Reiner and Spiky stepped through the great doors of the Rockery court and into the shadows beyond, leaving the silent, shattered court behind. Outside the stronghold, the once bustling Rockery city was eerily quiet, the air thick with the remnants of the chaos Spiky and Reiner had left in their wake. The fortress's energy shields were still flickering, struggling to come back online after the sabotage, but Reiner didn't seem concerned. They had more than enough time to make their escape. Spiky trotted ahead, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air, his tail wagging lazily now that the action was over. You did good, buddy, Reiner said, patting the dog on the head. Never gets old seeing the look on their faces when they realize what you can do. Spiky barked once in response, his tail wagging even harder. As they made their way through the darkened streets, Reiner pulled a small device from his pocket and activated it. A faint hum filled the air, and moments later, a sleek, black shuttle descended from the clouds above, landing softly in front of them. Reiner climbed aboard, Spiky following close behind, and the door sealed shut with a soft hiss. As the shuttle lifted off, disappearing into the night sky, Reiner leaned back in his seat, staring out the viewport at the planet below. Spiky curled up at his feet, his eyes already half closed in contentment. Another day, another empire knocked down a peg, Reiner muttered to himself with a slight smirk.